Welcome back, true crime enthusiasts. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most unsettling and eerie cases in recent history, the mysterious death of Elisa Lam. This story, full of bizarre twists, strange coincidences, and unanswerable questions, has left us with far more than just the unsettling images of a young woman's final moments. In February 2013, Elisa Lam, a 21-year-old student from Canada, was staying at the infamous Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. But what should have been an ordinary trip for Elisa turned into one of the most puzzling and mysterious cases the world has ever seen. Elisa's disappearance was tragic, but it was the eerie footage in the hotel elevator, showing her behaving erratically, that would send shockwaves through the public and leave everyone with one haunting question. What happened to Elisa Lam? Elisa Lam wasn't just a student. She was someone who dreamed of the world, eager to discover new places, meet new people, and experience the pulse of the world around her. She was from Vancouver, Canada, where she attended school, and she decided to take a solo trip to the United States to explore Los Angeles. She stayed at the Cecil Hotel, a location with a dark history. The hotel, built in 1924, had long been known for its bizarre and tragic connections to crime, including being the site where notorious serial killer Richard Ramirez, also known as a Night Stalker, had once stayed. However, at the time Elisa arrived, the hotel had been revamped and was marketed as a budget-friendly spot for tourists. Elisa's original plan was to stay for a few nights, but after arriving on January 26, 2013, she was last seen on January 31st. The last contact with her family was through a phone call, but after that, Elisa seemed to disappear without a trace. It didn't take long for Elisa's family to realize something was terribly wrong. After failing to get in touch with her for several days, her parents contacted the police. The search began, and authorities reviewed the hotel security footage to see if they could determine Elisa's whereabouts. This was where the case took a chilling turn. The footage that was released to the public shows Elisa entering the hotel's elevator and pressing several buttons. But as the footage continues, it becomes increasingly strange. Elisa appears to be looking around nervously, as if she's hiding from someone, and then, almost inexplicably, she steps in and out of the elevator several times, pushing all the buttons on the control panel, but never moving. She's speaking or gesturing, but no one is visible. It's as though she's interacting with something that isn't there, or perhaps she's trapped in a moment of confusion or terror. As the video comes to a close, the elevator doors open, and Elisa steps out of view. The doors shut, and the elevator stays unmoving for several moments. What was happening in that elevator? What caused Elisa to act in such an erratic, unpredictable manner? The elevator footage of Elisa Lam's final moments is one of the most disturbing aspects of this case. The video, now infamous, raised more questions than answers. Why did Elisa appear so anxious? Was she being pursued by someone unseen? Was she under the influence of something? The distorted nature of her behavior in the elevator led some to believe that Elisa may have been dealing with mental health issues, possibly exacerbated by stress, medication, or other factors. However, there was something even more unsettling about the video. Elisa's actions were not those of a typical person caught in a moment of confusion. She didn't seem to be experiencing a panic attack or typical anxiety. There were no signs of distress over the situation. She seemed calm yet aware, a subtle but haunting contradiction. Some theories suggest that Elisa's actions in the elevator could be attributed to some form of psychosis. Others wonder she had encountered something supernatural or paranormal, as the Cecil Hotel had a long history of eerie events and strange occurrences. In fact, the hotel's reputation, mixed with the unusual behavior in the elevator, led some to question whether Elisa's death was tied to something darker and more sinister than a mental health crisis. Despite the eerie footage and growing theories, the mystery only deepened after Elisa Lam's body was discovered on February 19, 2013. Nearly 3 weeks after her disappearance, workers at the Cecil Hotel were called in to investigate complaints from guests about the water's strange taste and color. The workers discovered Elisa's body in one of the water tanks on the roof of the hotel. How did she end up there? The hotel's water tanks are difficult to access, and Elisa would have had to scale a locked rooftop door and find her way into the tank. Surveillance footage showed her nowhere near the roof at any point during her stay, leading many to wonder, did Elisa climb up to the roof willingly, or was she somehow lured there? The doors to the roof were supposed to be locked, so how did she get in? Additionally, when the body was found, there were no signs of trauma or external injuries, leading some to believe that Elisa's death could have been accidental. But the mystery of how she got into the water tank and why she was left there still remains one of the most puzzling aspects of this case. Many still find themselves asking, what happened to Elisa Lam that led her to act in such an erratic manner? Was it a case of a mental health crisis? Or was there something more sinister involved? Theories about her death have ranged from speculation about the hotel's dark history and the possibility of foul play, to the idea that Elisa's tragic death could have been a result of a spontaneous accident, exacerbated by her mental state. Yet, even with all the theories in the investigation, no one has been able to explain Elisa's strange behavior in the elevator or how she came to be in the water tank. The questions remain unanswered, and they continue to haunt anyone who watches the footage or learns about this case. If you found Elisa Lam's story as chilling as we did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into unsolved mysteries and true crime cases that continue to baffle the world. What do you think happened to Elisa Lam? Was her death a tragic accident? Or is there more to the story than we know? Share your thoughts in the comments below. It had been nearly 3 weeks since Elisa Lam went missing. The public search for the 21-year-old student had intensified, but her whereabouts remained a mystery. The last clue was the strange elevator footage, which had given the world a glimpse into her final moments. Still, nothing had explained her disappearance or offered a clear lead. Then, on February 19, 2013, the unthinkable happened. Hotel guests started complaining about the water in their rooms. It had an odd taste, a strange color, and in some cases, it came out of the taps blackened. The complaints were bad enough to prompt the hotel staff to investigate the water tanks on the roof. What they discovered was utterly chilling. The workers made their way to the roof, and after accessing the locked rooftop door, which had been difficult to open, they climbed up to check the water tanks. What they found was not only shocking, but horrific. Elisa Lam's body was floating in one of the hotel's water tanks, submerged and hidden from view. She was naked, with her clothes and personal items scattered near the top of the tank. Her body was discovered in an awkward position, with no signs of external injury. It appeared to be a drowning, but the lack of evidence of foul play raised more questions. How could she have ended up in the water tank in the first place? The discovery left both law enforcement and the public in a state of disbelief. The water tank had a locked lid, which required effort and determination to open, yet there was no surveillance footage showing Elisa on the roof or even near the tank. How had she gained access to the rooftop in the first place? Hotel employees testified that they had seen Elisa interacting with the hotel elevator, but no one could recall seeing her near the water tanks. The hotel had multiple cameras in various locations, but footage from the rooftop was unavailable, adding to the mystery. The water tanks themselves were high up on the roof, and the entrance was supposed to be securely locked. Elisa, being only 5 feet 4 inches and 92 pounds, would have faced a significant challenge just getting into the tank. The circumstances surrounding her climbing to the top and entering the tank remained inexplicable. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office performed an autopsy on Elisa Lam's body after it was discovered. The report stated that there was no obvious trauma or foul play involved in her death, and the cause of death was officially ruled as accidental drowning. However, the coroner also noted that Elisa had bipolar disorder, a condition that could have influenced her behavior leading up to her disappearance and death. Elisa had been prescribed medication for her condition, but the coroner found no signs of overdose or other physical injuries that might indicate suicide or violent attack. There was also no evidence that Elisa had been sexually assaulted or physically restrained. The report did, however, mention the possibility that she may have been experiencing a psychotic episode before her death, which might explain her erratic behavior in the elevator footage. While the autopsy report seemed to close the door on foul play, many remained unconvinced that Elisa's death was just a tragic accident. The elevator footage and the bizarre circumstances of her death raised suspicions that something far more sinister could have been involved. Many wondered, how could a young woman, presumably acting erratically, have ended up alone on the roof, without anyone noticing? Was she running from something, or was someone involved? The fact that Elisa's body was found in such an isolated and difficult-to-access location only fueled the theory that there might have been a darker force at work. Some suggested that Elisa's death could have been a result of a mental health episode that caused her to act unpredictably and, in a moment of confusion, climb to the roof and fall into the water tank. Others believed that she could have been the victim of foul play, with her body placed in the water tank by someone else. As the investigation into Elisa's death continued, numerous theories about what might have happened began to emerge. One of the most widely circulated ideas was that Elisa had been the victim of conspiracy or criminal act. The Cecil Hotel, after all, was no stranger to dark and sinister events in its past, including associations with serial killers and paranormal activity. Some even speculated that Elisa's erratic behavior in the elevator could have been caused by external factors, such as drugs, though no drugs were found in her system during the autopsy. Could she have been drugged by someone at the hotel, possibly by a stranger, or even by someone she knew? The unanswered questions only added fuel to the speculation that Elisa's death was anything but accidental. Other theories suggested that the hotel's notorious reputation for paranormal activity played a role in her disappearance. The Cecil Hotel had a long and dark history, with past guests including serial killers like Richard Ramirez and the infamous Black Dahlia case. Could Elisa have encountered something supernatural in the hotel, adding a layer of mystery and intrigue to her tragic end? As the weeks passed, the public remained captivated by Elisa Lam's case. Despite the official ruling of an accidental death, the unanswered questions continue to haunt those who had followed the case. What really happened in those final moments of Elisa's life? Was an accident, a mental health crisis, or something far more sinister? If you've been fascinated by Elisa's mysterious story and want to continue exploring the unanswered questions, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do you believe there's more to this case than we know, or was it simply a tragic accident? Share your thoughts below, and stay tuned for, as we dive into the lingering theories, the hotel's dark past, and the lasting impact of Elisa Lam's death on the public consciousness. To understand the eerie atmosphere surrounding Elisa Lam's death, we must first look at the hotel where she stayed. The Cecil Hotel, built in 1924, had long been a location associated with strange and tragic events. From its connection to notorious serial killers like Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, to the unsolved murder of Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, the hotel had earned a reputation for being a place of death and despair. In fact, the hotel had a history of suicides, murders, and violent crime that spanned decades. By the time Elisa Lam checked in, the Cecil had become a notorious landmark in Los Angeles, famous not just for its budget-friendly pricing, but for its dark and ominous past. Some even believed that the hotel itself had a haunted quality, with multiple reports of strange occurrences and ghost sightings. But was it this dark history that played a role in Elisa's death? Could the supernatural influence of the hotel have driven her to her tragic end? This idea might seem far-fetched to some, but the connections between Elisa's erratic behavior in the elevator and the hotel's tainted legacy can't be ignored. Theories abound that perhaps Elisa encountered something otherworldly in the hotel that led to her tragic fate. Some even wondered if her mental state had been compromised by external, paranormal forces. One of the most prevalent theories that has persisted throughout the years is that Elisa Lam's death was not accidental, but rather the result of foul play. While the official autopsy report ruled her death as accidental drowning, many still find it hard to believe that Elisa, a young woman with no known history of self-harm or dangerous behavior, would climb into the water tank of her own accord. Some have suggested that Elisa could have been murdered, with the body placed in the water tank after her death. This theory seems to be bolstered by the fact that there were no signs of forced entry into the roof area, and no surveillance footage that definitively showed Elisa making her way to the roof. Additionally, the water tank was locked from the outside, which would have made it incredibly difficult for Elisa to access without assistance. Could someone have taken Elisa to the roof, incapacitated her, and left her body in the water tank to be discovered later? This theory remains one of the most widely discussed and debated aspects of the case. However, the lack of concrete evidence and the absence of eyewitness testimony leaves this theory as speculative, though still troubling. Another theory that has gained traction over the years is the idea that Elisa's death was the result of a mental health crisis. Elisa Lam had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was known to be on medication for her condition. Some speculate that the combination of stress from her travels, the pressure of managing her mental health, and the isolation she might have felt while staying at the Cecil Hotel could have contributed to her erratic behavior in the elevator. Could Elisa have been experiencing a psychotic episode during her time at the hotel? It's important to note that bipolar disorder, when untreated or mismanaged, can sometimes cause extreme changes in behavior, including delusions, paranoia, and confusion. The footage from the elevator shows Elisa acting in a way that might be consistent with someone in the midst of a mental health crisis, looking out the elevator, gesturing as if interacting with an unseen force, and behaving in a way that doesn't make logical sense. If Elisa was experiencing a psychotic episode, it's possible that she wandered a roof in a disoriented state, either in search of help or simply as a result of her confusion. This theory is, of course, not an easy explanation for Case. The fact that Elisa was reportedly stable before her trip and had kept in contact with her family throughout her travels makes this theory feel incomplete, but it remains a possibility. One of the most perplexing aspects of Elisa Lam's case is the elevator footage. The way Elisa interacts with the elevator buttons, seemingly hiding and gesturing in a paranoid manner, has led many to speculate about what she was reacting to. Some believe that Elisa was trying to escape from someone. Was she hiding from an unseen threat? Did she sense danger that we cannot see on the footage? Others have suggested that Elisa may have been speaking to someone who wasn't physically present. Was she interacting with an invisible presence, or was her mind playing tricks on her? The eeriness of the footage only intensifies the mystery surrounding the case, and it is often cited as one of the most unsettling pieces of video footage ever released in a true crime case. After all this time, the death of Elisa Lam remains one of the most perplexing and haunting mysteries in recent history. Despite the official ruling of accidental death, the strange behavior, the hotel's dark past, and the bizarre circumstances surrounding her disappearance continue to fuel speculation. Was Elisa Lam simply a victim of mental illness in a tragic accident, or was something more sinister at play? For the family of Elisa Lam, the unanswered questions are devastating. Their daughter, who was excited about seeing the world and exploring new places, never returned from her trip to Los Angeles. For the rest of us, Elisa's case remains an eerie reminder of how fragile life can be, and how the truth often slips through our fingers, no matter how hard we try to grasp it. If you followed along with this deep dive into Elisa Lam's death, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more unsettling and mysterious true crime stories. What do you think happened to Elisa? Do you believe her death was an accident, or was there something more to this tragic case? Let us know in the comments. Stay tuned for more in-depth investigations into cases that still haunt us.